Politic is bipartisan as opposed to non-partisan. Bipartisan acknowledges that left and right, conservative, liberal, whatever they call it where you are natural creations. A great technique when thinking about human nature is to imagine humanity was rebooted. So we can speak, but we have no history, no real knowledge. We get transported back 100,000 years and we relive those 100,000 years to the present time. What things that we have now would we have after the reboot? Would we have left and right politics? And I believe we would. This is an important conclusion, and the underlying vision of this platform is based on this. Left and right politics are equally natural and must be recognized. If you're with me, keep listening. If not, shoot me an email to let me know where I'm wrong. So in a democracy, there will always be left versus right politics. It's a spectrum, left on one end, right on the other end, and you are somewhere on that spectrum. I think it's important to get an idea of what those ends of the spectrum are. We all feel like we know what left and right politics mean, but maybe good to flesh it out. This will probably upset and offend most of you. Those who are not offended will certainly feel these definitions are incomplete and or off the mark a bit, which is fine, but let it serve as a starting point for a good discussion, because we got to start somewhere. Here we go. Right-wing politics. Some beliefs of the right. The world is a harsh place. Violence is a part of humanity, so we need to be strong to stave it off and or come out on the winning end. There's the belief that the us versus them dynamic is real, and we need to protect our nation from other nations and our culture from foreign cultures. Coexistence is a fleeting situation. Life is more about winning and losing. While the forces of nature have created our violent tendencies, there's also a natural ecosystem in which we innovate and grow and are rewarded for these things. This natural ecosystem is superior and more stable to anything humans can create, including government. So the vision is to limit government, as it is an inferior creation. We humans have tweaked and adapted this natural ecosystem to a more modern and technological world, and named that system with its human handrails, capitalism. Because while people are capable, they need incentives, so better to allow for a slightly unhealthy gap between rich and poor so as to motivate people to produce and to be on the rich side. Religion and social norms are also natural, and they should hold us together as opposed to government. As they are so important, they must be protected, as I just described, from foreign influence, which is why we often see right-leaning politics as not only pro-religion, but also anti-immigrant. Right-leaning doctrines also have an awkward marriage of personal liberty and religious conformity. The individual should be the master of their finances and their health and well-being, but religious credos locked to national identity tell us how to live our lives, raise our families, and how to treat our fellow man. They are older than time and should not bend and sway with trends and fads. Either way, none of these things should be dictated by the government. Left-wing politics. The modern world is a technological one and is therefore way too complicated for the average person. They need support. And government is considered the logical organism to provide it, because the nation's economy and social infrastructure are improved when people are supported well. Left-leaning people are often in the arts, sciences, and academia. They see problems and look for practical solutions and look less to the moral or ideological implications. They consider these things as human constructs anyway. To many on the left, religion is a relic of the past, and they tend to put it on the back burner. That is another reason to use government as the institutional behemoth to provide that support to a nation's citizens. Their governments are big governments. They value equality, not just racial and gender equality, but also financial. They are happy to reward achievers, but let's not get carried away. If you have a lot of money, it's because we, the people, facilitated your success through education, infrastructure, and business-friendly environments. And in the end, we gave you your money too, so the left will push the rich to share the wealth. They take a more peaceful approach to coexistence, believing that people are peaceful by nature, but every now and again you get a bad person in there who tries to take everything for themselves. And while we can usually trust people to make the right decisions, if they do things that smell of the wrong decision, then the left will take just as harsh measures as they critique the right for. They see truth and justice as higher forces than national interests, so the idea of nationalism is less pronounced. Instead, they want to be friends with foreign entities and cooperate. They value harmony over growth and are revolted by authoritarian regimes. They value more social freedoms over group coercion, and the left loves multiculturalism because they see all free and enlightened cultures as equal and believe if you throw them all together, they will peacefully coexist. Because once again, the truth of science and peace will prevail over local interests. Again, such characterizations of the left and right may not be 100%. It's a generalization at best. I mean, there are plenty of people on the left who are religious and plenty of people on the right who are in arts and academia. But hopefully there's some truth in these descriptions too. And maybe they're even both right at the same time. The world is a violent place, and cooperation does seem to mitigate a lot of that violence. People are capable, but also need lots of support in this modern world. So hopefully you recognize those descriptions and maybe even see your own political views in there. And you do fit in there somewhere. Maybe more left-leaning or right-leaning, but you're on that spectrum, and the ends of that spectrum are left and right. You have probably found a way to define your place on the spectrum as completely devoid of the negative parts, like being religious without being judgmental, or for feeling that people do need support, but not considering such people as lesser. That's great. Honestly, we would be remiss to judge either one of them. They are both equally good and bad, and that's the point I'm trying to make here. And whatever you are, it's nothing to be ashamed about, and it's nothing to judge other people for. The only really interesting question about your political views is how you got them. How did you get to where you are politically? How did you educate yourself? And also important, what friendships and alliances have you risked by thinking independently from your friends, your family members, and your peer group? If someone thinks like their friends, like their family, like their coworkers, then they probably haven't thought much at all. And you should take such a person less seriously than someone who has. We need alliances and cannot underestimate how influential our friends, family, and coworkers are on our political standpoints. Taking independent stands is a real sign of intellectual honesty and takes real guts. Another topic nestled in all this is extremism. Extremism is bad. But why? It's not a given that extremism is bad. If you're convinced that a meteor will hit Earth tomorrow, feel free to live an extreme life until it hits. And when it comes to politics, if you're convinced that left-wing politics is bad or that right-wing politics is bad, and anyone who's on the side you disagree with is stupid, uninformed, or malicious, then you should be an extremist. But if you acknowledge that left and right are both natural, as I've tried to convince you here, then extremism is not an option. How could you be extremely against something that nature herself has created, something that's in all of us, and that so many people all over the world identify as? So this platform has a real philosophical drive to disregard extremism. Our incentives, unlike mainstream ad-based media platforms, will reward that acknowledgement of both left and right-leaning perspectives. Because in the end, peace and harmony are the best path. They are even the common stated goals of the left and the right. They just have different ideas about how to get there. The Western world has seen historical growth these past 70 years once they stopped fighting each other. Let's find a way to tone it down. You don't have to like everyone. Not everyone has to like you. But we see that differences of the left and right are natural and that they will never be total agreement, and that's okay. We can plant the seeds of respect, empathy, live and let live, goodwill onto mankind, whatever you want to call it. We're going to try it here. Hope you'll join in.